Well, not the best way to start off the CHGO Blackhawks reign. 0-1 now for Chicago, as you are listening to the CHGO Blackhawks podcast, first post-game show as the Blackhawks lose 4-3 to the Flyers. My name is Tirabassi. That's Greg Boysen. Want to mention that this show is presented by Pointsbet. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up to live your bet life. Blackhawks and Flyers, first time that they've played each other in a few years due to scheduling differences and with the shortened season last year and whatnot. But the Blackhawks will have to wait another day to try and snap their decades-long losing streak in the regular season against the Philadelphia Flyers, as they are now 17 straight losses, excluding the playoffs, for the Blackhawks against the Flyers in Philadelphia with today's loss. It was a feisty game. To put it into one word, feisty is the best way that I can put it.
There was some spice on that cheesesteak today. There's no doubt about that. That was, got a little bit of everything there. Obviously, Blackhawks ruined our first post-game here on CHGO. We wanted to talk about a win. Certainly looked like we were going to get one there for a while. Great second period. First period got better. It was a sleepy start, but that's nothing new.
What else is new?
Right, exactly. It would be more surprising if we were like, holy crap, that start by the Blackhawks was amazing.
Right,
We're
exactly.
used to the slow starts. Second period was really good. And then, just they can't close the deal again. We could record one episode and pretty much play it 3 out of 4 games and just fill in the blanks of whatever team they're playing against. So, but, I did like to see the feistiness that we saw today. There was some people that cared, and that's what you want to see. You want to see guys care, and there definitely was some of that.
Yeah, we talked about it in the first podcast yesterday. What are you going to start paying attention to as the Blackhawks now are going into the trade deadline as a rebuilding team that are going to start, selling off some assets and start bringing in some young players? One thing that you're going to see is, okay, who are the next players that are going to come in through the lineup? The other thing you want to see is who cares about this team? Not who cares, but who the GAF meter. Right. Who's putting some effort into the games, who's showing some heart, showing some emotion. And we saw it in today's game. Guys like Alex DeBrincat and Jonathan Toews, causing some scrums. Not Jonathan Toews, the guy you want to see dropping the gloves right now.
Yeah,
but
I mean, he's your captain. That's what you want to see out of your captain. But you don't want to see that out of a captain who's just coming back from a concussion.
Another concussion.
With a history of concussions, has health problems. I get it. That's what he does. That's what you want out of your captain. But, maybe not taking punches in the head.
Yeah.
Second game back from what? How many concussions is it? Lost count.
Yeah. Diagnosed, it could be,
And I know, it's heat of the moment. You're not thinking, you're the captain. You're going out there. You see a guy like Alex DeBrincat challenge Ristolainen, and you're going to jump in there, and that's the right thing to do, but maybe not by the right player.
But
it's instinct.
Exactly.
So it's heat of the moment. You're not going to get mad at him for doing it.
Right. It's easy to say, like, hey, don't jump in there from us, but from those guys, I mean, that's the nature of the game. And at the end of the day, there were no real fights or punches thrown, so you can say it's.
And I will give Ristolainen some credit. The gigantic Flyers defenseman, Toews got him from behind, and then he kind of jumped up, and then when he realized who it was, he kind of backed off there for a second.
Yeah.
So little stick tap to the veteran defender for not killing our captain when he probably easily could have. But that was kind of like where he's like, okay, I'm not gonna go overboard here. I don't know if it was the injury history that crept in his head. Probably not, but just something about a respect. Like, okay, it's the captain doing what a captain does. Right. There's no reason to keep it going.
Also, those were, I think, at points where the Flyers, the first one was the Flyers that had just scored to tie the game, and then they were, they were leading at that point too. Right. So it wasn't, he's not going to take himself off the ice where they're in a position to be leading. So
savvy veteran move on more than one hand there.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we talked about the slow start, something that you're coming off of a game on Thursday night where you had, the Flyers in town. You had Nicholas Hjalmarsson legacy night. You had Duncan Keith coming back. It was Taves' first game back, since from coming off the concussion. You have two of the best players in the league coming into the United Center, and just the energy was just up, and you could tell that the Blackhawks were feeding off of that. And then you come into today's game, a 2:00 start on a Saturday, national broadcasts. Blackhawks Flyers, not two teams that are going to be, fighting for any playoff positioning, but two teams that are, they have history.
Right.
And you come out and you have such a slow start out of the gate. You're outshot 9-2 at one point, 11-5 at one point in the first period. You give up the first goal, something you've done for most of the season. And it was just, it's just this kind of the same script you're seeing from the Blackhawks all season.
It's frustrating because, we used to, I could say we, because I'm sure you said it a lot too. This was a problem under Jeremy Colleton for the last 2 seasons plus. And, slow starts. It's the coach's job to get the team ready to play. And now we're seeing those same problems under Derek King too. So now you're going, well, is it just 2 consecutive coaches that can't get their team ready to go? Or is this now a personnel issue as well? And it's probably a little bit of both. But if you make a coaching change and you still get the same kind of problems, especially when it comes to, showing up at the opening face-off, then, that seems to me that, yes, you got to put some of that blame on Derek King for sure. It's his job to have his team ready, but 2 coaches, same problems, same season. It's at what point do you say, well, come on, it's on the players. You got to be ready to go. That's their job. Be ready to play at puck drop. So many times this season it hasn't happened, and it's beyond frustrating.
Right, and it's professional athletes. Like these guys are paid handsomely to play this, to play hockey and to be able to be ready to go. 82 games a season. I can understand that some of it's a grind, especially when you're in the position in the standings where the Blackhawks are at, and you're seeing probably a bunch of your teammates are not going to be here in 2-3 weeks. I can understand that that's tough to get up for, but it's you're now fighting for a job in front of the new boss, Kyle Davidson. He was at the game. He was interviewed by Emily Kaplan during the broadcast, and so he was there. He's and he's the guy now. He was put in place, had the interim tag lifted on Tuesday. He's the GM. He's going to be the one sending these players up, down, out of town, bringing guys in. So he's the one going to be making all the shots. So. Two games under him officially as a GM. You had the overtime win against the Oilers, and then you had this afternoon's game where they blow a lead and to a Flyers team that they'd only had one win this year where they were trailing after the second period.
Yeah, and they were 3-16-4 since January 1st. And you're getting Martin
down
Jones,
the stands.
Backup goalie who's been. I'll word this kindly, less than good the last 2 or 3 seasons. I mean, this is your chance. Road game, sure, but, this was a perfect team to beat on the road, and you had them. You had a lead in the second period, and you just couldn't do it. As you said, the motivation, they're getting paid a lot of money to play a sport that we'd all love to do, but, and then you mentioned the Kyle Davidson. This is the guy that's going to decide your future. And you got a roster full of guys that could very easily be playing in Rockford right now. Mm-hmm. So if the motivation to not stay in the NHL doesn't get you ready to play at the opening faceoff, it's time to find guys that will. Enough is enough. If these guys don't want to do it, and Kyle Davidson proved just yesterday, he don't care how long you've been in this organization.
Right.
He's going to show you the door if you don't fit his vision. So. Some of these guys, especially these young guys that are borderline NHLers right now, we have a roster full of them, and there's guys in Rockford that will gladly take your spot, and frankly, they're replacement level guys that you can swap in and out and really not notice a difference. So, you want to keep your spot, you got to start playing better, and it's just, you're going to lose games. This Blackhawks team for the next couple of years, they're going to lose games because the talent gap is too big to overcome. You can deal with losing to a better team. The Flyers are not a better team than the Blackhawks.
Right.
That talent gap is not big enough. it's the effort. That's what you want to see going forward during the process of this rebuild is the effort. You got to have guys that want to be here, that want to play night in and night out, not for 7 minutes in the second period, the whole 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to get effort, and that should be the key for the rebuild. You can lose to a better team, but if you gave that effort for 60 minutes, then you can hang your hat on that. You shouldn't be losing to teams like the Flyers because you're not giving effort. A full effort wins you this game too.
Right. Well, and too, you look at the slow start. You look at some of the mistakes that were made, from behind the bench. You talk about the not being prepared to go from the coaching standpoint. This was the second game in a row where they had too many men on the ice penalties, and on Thursday they were able to overcome them and get a win. This tonight or this afternoon, whatever you want to call it, with a minute and a half to play, you got Lankin and Pold, and you got 7 guys on the ice. You're allowed to have 6. You had 7.
And that wasn't even from a botched line change. Sometimes line changes, it gets hectic, it's crazy. It wasn't a line change. Mm-hmm. 2 guys jumped on when it should have been just 1, and you can't have that. No excuse. And it appeared it was Kubelik was the extra guy over.
Right.
For a guy that's been struggling like him, you can't make those mistakes. Those are inexcusable, and it could have cost them. I mean, they had to play shorthanded. I mean, technically even strength because they pulled the goalie, but it put you behind the 8 ball with a minute and a half to go in a 1-goal game during a period which they lost 8 straight faceoffs at one point in the third period.
Down the stretch, they could not win a draw.
You're trying to make a comeback. You're down a goal. You can't win it, including goal faceoffs on a power play.
Mm-hmm.
You're losing faceoffs left and right, and now you make more mental mistakes. Again, that's just you can't have it. And yes, we know this isn't a great hockey team, but these are the small things in detail that this team needs to get better at to just be competitive. And these are the things that Kyle Davison needs to be watching for. Guys not jumping over the boards, costing them penalties. Guys that can win faceoffs in the third period when you're down a goal, chasing a lead that you blew. You got to have guys that can do those small things. So I'm willing to bet Kyle Davison is getting on the Blackhawks charter back here to Chicago with a notebook full of names that might not be circled for good reasons.
Yeah, and one person that I think we've been talking about all season, and he had a big impact in the game today that Kyle Davison is really going to have a difficult decision about is Dylan Strome. He got 2 goals today. He's now 10 and 11 goals on the year. Obviously playing in the right position to have success. He's playing with Patrick Kane. He's playing out with Alex DeBrincat. He's playing this top 6 role and playing with the skill players that he needs to be successful. And you're seeing some these flashes where he's in the right positions. He's making the right plays at the right time. I mean, it's another do you trade him? Do you keep him? Right. Kind of game, because you look at what he brings to the table. You look at his age. You look at his relative affordability. I mean, there's reasons to trade him, reasons to keep him. Does that change at all after having a game like he did today?
I mean,
it feels like we live one game at a time with Dylan Strome.
It really doesn't change that conversation because he both gave you more reason to keep him and raise his trade value all at the same time. So it's a double-edged sword. You can argue both sides of that coin and not be wrong. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to that. If you get full value for whatever that is right now, if you can make it worth giving up on a guy that's 24, that will be pretty affordable. He's not going to command a $7-8 million salary here.
He might not even get the same money he's getting now.
He probably won't. I mean,
the only way I feel like the only way
never underestimate the stupidity of an NHL general manager.
Of course, yeah.
So there's always somebody out there that's gonna go what and then ruin it for everybody.
Right, exactly.
But you're right. He probably won't get as much AVV as his current contract.
That is unless the Blackhawks give him a qualifying offer, which
I don't think they want to do that.
I don't think you can.
No. But he's got 26 more games now to force their hand.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing for his future, and I've been on all season, even and since the end of last season when it was obvious he had fallen out of favor with Colleton. I've been on the trade Dylan Strome. Trade him for his sake. Let the kid go someplace where he can, thrive. But in the past few weeks, he's made his case to where I'm almost to the point where I'm like, well, let's bring him back on a team-friendly contract for another 2 years. He's the perfect type of player for a rebuilding team. Still young, still has room to grow, affordable, young and cheap. That's what the Blackhawks need the next few years, and he fits that mold. So if they can get good value for him at trade deadline day, I won't be upset.
Right.
If they bring him back at a nice deal and he continues to be this version of Dylan Strome, I won't be upset. If you let him go for nothing, well, then I'm going to be on this chair saying, what the hell is going on?
Right.
So that is one of the storylines that we'll definitely keep an eye on here, at least for the next couple of weeks until March 21st.
Right, exactly.
And, we'll ride it out if he's still here.
Yeah, I think, you're at, like you said, you're at the point where you're not wrong either way.
Right.
It's just what is going to be what is the future result going to be? Is it going to be, okay, we're rolling the dice on Dylan Strome again, and he showed us enough to keep him around. We keep him on a team friendly contract, short term, whatever it needs to be, and then it goes, oh, okay, he's going to have a slump again. Is it going to be more of the same Dylan Strome? I think, like you said, you can't be wrong trading him as long as you get what you get at fair value.
You don't want to give him up for a 5th or 6th round pick, but if you can get third, second.
Yeah,
if someone offers you a second, you almost have to grab it.
Yeah, especially when you don't have a first-round pick this year.
So it all depends on what the offers are too. That I think are going to. I think I get the impression that Davidson is smart enough to know what the values are. I think a lot of guys are going to try and fleece him at the trade deadline. Like, here's this young kid, never done it. Let's see if we can pull a fast one on him. But I think he's smarter than that, and I think he knows those guys that are in the top of that trade list. I think he has a good idea of what he wants to get back, and if nobody gives you what you're looking for, you don't have to trade him.
Right. There's no reason to make a deal just for the sake of making a deal.
He's not a contract that you got to get rid of to move forward. He's not, if Kyle Davidson decides I need either a 2nd or a 3rd round pick for Strome and he doesn't get that offer, then you keep him. The market dictates his future, at least for the remainder of this season.
Right, and we know that he's been dangled out on the trade block for about a year, and there hasn't been a worthy enough deal to get rid of him.
That deal hasn't come around, so does it come around at the trade deadline with him playing better and teams getting more desperate? Who knows who needs another forward in the next couple of weeks due to injury? Hockey, we all know
it can change.
Your lineup
just like
can
that.
change in a millisecond. So someone gets desperate enough to throw a 2nd round pick, I think you really got to consider it at that point. But yeah, it will be one of the most intriguing storylines between now and March 21st.
Yeah, and Dylan Strome's not a player that we have to put out a disclaimer for.
No.
I think we'd be fine without him.
Right.
Not like Brandon Hagel, which we fully love Brandon Hagel, and we're not saying that we have to trade him.
Our daily episode reminder that we do love Brandon Hagel, but he's not untouchable.
Yep. And a reminder that this podcast is brought to you by Sportsbet. PointsBet, the best way to support CHGO is to download the PointsBet app and use the code CHGO when you sign up. PointsBet is your home for live in-game betting. Introducing PointsBet's new exclusive feature, Live NBA Same Game Parlays. For the first time ever, build the perfect live same game parlay only with PointsBet. You can combine your favorite bets anytime during the game, and you can boost your live same game parlays as well. Watch live, parlay live, and boost live with PointsBet. And now, online sign-up is available in Illinois starting today. You can download the PointsBet app, register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. Signing up with the fastest sportsbook is now easier than ever, so you can start living your bet life in seconds. Check out the link in the description below. Use the code CHGO to get 2 risk-free bets for up to $2,000. So what are you waiting for? It's time to elevate your live betting game. Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. So one thing that hockey does is give out 3 stars of a game. It's, sometimes it's arbitrary. Sometimes it's, you look at it and you go, okay, they got that right. In tonight's game, the 3 stars all came from the Flyers. Big surprise. But with us here at CHGO, we're in Chicago. The flag's got 4 stars on it, so we're going with 4 stars of the game. So the 3 stars of the game were all the Flyers. So we have the entire Blackhawks lineup to pick the 4th star of the game for us here with the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. Greg, I'm going to go with you first. Your nomination for the 4th star of the game.
It's a guy that I actually was kind of surprised wasn't one of the 3 stars, and that's Dylan Strome with his 2 goals. We just talked about him. 2 goals, 2 big goals there. Great play from Canner that set him up. Something about that spot of the Philadelphia ice that just brings out magic in good old number 88. I almost called it the Wells Fargo Center. I don't know. Is that what it is? I know it's not that anymore. They changed their name too.
No,
often.
I think is it
Wells
Wells
Fargo? I don't know.
I'm not 100%.
I still want to
sure.
call it the Spectrum. That's how old school I am. But something about that spot on the ice gets Patrick Kane all energized. But Strome, 2 goals. He had 6 shots on goal. I think those were all in the first 2 periods too. I don't remember him getting any in the third. My only downside on Strome, and this hasn't been a problem for him lately, but he
had an off day.
Brutal at the dot. He just won 4 of 14 draws for 29% on the faceoffs. You got to be better than that. But he has been a lot better this season. In fact, especially with Taves out, you could argue he's been the best faceoff guy. So bad games happen. Hopefully, he's got a chance to bounce back from that real quick tomorrow night. Back at the United Center against Tampa Bay. So that'll be a challenge against some of their centers. So Dylan Strome is my CHGO 4th star of the game. Best Hawk on the ice as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, 2 goals, good game from him. Obviously the face-offs we talked about, down the stretch were an issue, but it's hard to argue against that. I'm going to go with the captain, Jonathan Toews. Had an assist in the game. He was 12 of 21 from the faceoff dot, led the Blackhawks in that category. And we talked about, how this game was feisty, and, you're a little bit like, don't want to see, Toews being the one getting into the middle of the scrums. But at the end of the day, that's who you want to show that you're leading the team. Getting that effort from the captain, being able to step up for his teammates. And, I put it out on Twitter. I said, this was a game between 2 teams that are, a few weeks away from being picked apart at the trade deadline. And you're seeing this kind of emotion, this kind of, physicality, getting into the scrums after goals, after the whistle and whatnot. That's what you want to see out of teammates caring for each other. Guys that are going to, literally fight for one another in a game between 2 teams that are not going to be going to the postseason. So, Jonathan Toews, I think he brought a lot of that tonight. And I think, it's an effort from him tonight that I think I hope can jumpstart him a little bit. They didn't get the win, but for him personally to kind of get involved in something like that, be in a game where, you're playing physical, you're mixing it up, getting on the score sheet, spend some time in the penalty box, win some face-off, like get really involved, and hopefully that can jumpstart him.
Doing those little things, doing those effort things we just talked about. Excuse me. And if he's going to stick around through this rebuild, at least through the end of his contract, those are the things you want a Jonathan Toews to do to rub off on these young up-and-coming players. You can rest on your laurels and your 3 Stanley Cups and your Conn Smythe and all that great stuff he's done in the past, but if he wants to be a real good an addition to this rebuild, at least the start of the rebuild, then that's what I'd like to see out of him more. And then that rubs off on guys like Kirby Dach and even Dylan Strome if he's still around. But these young guys, your Philip Kurashevs, your Lucas Reichel when he comes up playing every day, just to learn those little things that you don't necessarily have to affect the outcome of a game by scoring a big goal. You can do it by doing these little things that gets your team energized and gets your team wanting to play for each other. Because when your team is playing for each other, that is a team that is very hard to beat. So leading by example is, from here on out, I don't care what Jonathan Toews does point-wise. It's leading by example that he's going to be most important for the rest of his time here at the Blackhawks.
Absolutely, yeah. He's been the kind of person that's in his career has led by example, has been a player that says, follow me and I'll get you to where we need to go. And he's not able to really do that on the ice as much from a skill standpoint, but like you said, doing the little things right. That's a guy that you can point to for a young locker room that it's likely going to be in the next few years, and point to him and be like, okay, this is how you do it in the NHL. So Dylan Strome and Jonathan Toews, the first two fourth stars for the CHGO Blackhawks podcast, and again, it was pretty easy to kind of pick from the entire roster when Philly got all three of the other stars.
Hopefully this will be a little more in-depth discussion when all three Blackhawks are the 3 stars of the game. Then we have to do a little harder work.
It'll make us work a little bit harder.
This is fun. I love this idea. We've got 4 stars in the Chicago flag, and now we've got a 4th star, and well,
we got to pick one now.
We got to pick one.
Okay.
Actually, I think we should ask people in the YouTube chat.
Just ready to say that. Our magic man behind the curtain there, Lawrence, doing his great job as always. But
thank you.
Let us know in the YouTube comments or hit us up on Twitter, CHGO _Blackhawks, or Mario or Greg if you follow me and Mario. Let us know who your 4-star of the game. I guess we have to make a consensus pick here.
Okay.
We can't leave it hanging out there. This is...
You could ask me.
We're a city
what about
of
me?
final answers, so we need one guy.
There's no ties in hockey.
Can I vote for Gritty, or is that just I can't vote for
Gritty? That's the Philly number 1 star of the game. He's the number 1 star of our lives, not just the game.
Number
Gritty,
1 in
Gritty's
our
the
hearts.
best. Can we trade for Gritty? Will the Flyers give us Gritty for Dylan Strome straight up? Let's make that trade. I'm for it.
Hey, I mean that belly at the faceoff dot. I mean that gives you a positional advantage.
He streaks at outdoor games. I mean, come on, who doesn't want that on your team? We just got to paint him red, but he'll be all right. All right.
So between Jonathan Toews and Dylan Strome, I mean it's hard to argue against the guy who actually had the Blackhawks in the game. When it mattered on the score sheet. So I will concede the Jonathan Toews pick to you,
Lucky
to
you
Dylan
went
Strome.
first, because I was almost going to concede because of all the things we talking about Toews. But no, it is hard to, you score 3 goals and he's got 2 of them, and he had the 2 big ones in the second period there. So yeah, Dylan Strome is the official first Chicago 4th star of the game. This would be something fun. Way to go, Dylan. We've always been huge fans, right?
Your T-shirt's in the mail.
Yeah. We need to. This would be something we're gonna do going forward. It's kind of make it.
We're trying it out.
A fun little Chicago spin. This is what we're all about. We're all Chicago guys and girls, and we're all watching. We're Chicago fans, so let's keep it as Chicago as possible. So. Send us your votes. Who did you think? Tell us why you thought that they should be the CHGO 4-star of the game. You can do it right here on the YouTube feed if you're watching live, or hit us up on Twitter. Or if you've already become a CHGO member, which you should have, because it's the best deal you're going to get going. You're going to get access to exclusive content all throughout the website, not just Blackhawks, but Bulls, Cubs, Sox, Bears, everything. You get a free shirt. Who doesn't like free stuff? Especially as I'm going to steal from our colleague, Luke Stuckmeyer, dope merch. As he said. Get yourself some free dope merch. Luke, if you trademark that, I'll send you a few bucks when I see you next time. But also, you can join the members-only Discord server, so you can throw your comments in there. We've already got an active group in the Blackhawks chat room, so let us know. We love hearing about you. CHGO is all about community. It's all about the fans. It's not about just me and Mario talking. You guys are just as part of this show as we are. So let us know every game who your 4-star is, and we'll give you a shout-out. We'll interact with you. This is what it's all about, fans talking to fans.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that I can say about the dope merch is that for Blackhawks fans, you see the logo in the corner of the screen there. That's going to be on our CHGO Blackhawks shirts. We might, I think we're going to get hats going, maybe some sweaters, some I don't know, dog collars. These are just ideas that I have.
Yeah,
First, we need a dope
mug?
merch CHGO shirt. That should be our next first shirt, quote unquote dope merch, and have the logo underneath. But I'm going to go on the record right here. I'm going live on our feed right now. The first person I randomly see, be it at a game or on the street, wearing a Blackhawks CHGO shirt, I'm going to buy a slice of pizza for right there on the spot. So
Tavern
get those
style?
Shirts. Square pieces only. It might be a small piece. Maybe it'd be 2 pieces.
January there in the chat, she says we need a T-shirt or a sticker. We really do like Hagel. No exclamation point.
I'm for it. That's a good point there, January.
Jay had the whole disclaimer on the front and the back. We'll have to work that in there.
Problem is, we'll get those stickers printed up. We'll start selling them like hotcakes, and then they'll trade them.
With our luck, yep.
But no, that's a great idea. All about the merch. I mean, come on, who doesn't love getting free merch, great merch, dope merch from your favorite websites? And hopefully, CHGO is your favorite website already. If not, we're going to win you over.
Absolutely. One thing I did want to talk about that was outside of the game, that was part of the broadcast. I mentioned it earlier. Kyle Davidson had a little segment with Emily Kaplan on the ABC ESPN broadcast, talking a little bit about him taking over the position and the Blackhawks going into their rebuild. And he yet again affirmed, yes, we are rebuilding. We are going to need to, go younger, recoup prospects and picks, and build for the future. One thing that he did say that I did enjoy is, this is a little tagline to Emily Kaplan, was hop on the ride now, because in the end it will be worth it. And I think that that's something that the team is going to start or should start promoting. It's something that we've talked about in our work prior to joining CHGO and on yesterday's podcast, that getting into the Blackhawks, getting into the rebuild, for fans to be able to get on board now, as things are gonna start changing. Things are gonna be a little bit difficult. That's for sure. It's gonna be difficult. You're gonna see, you're not gonna see postseason hockey for a while. But you're going to see a lot of change. You're going to see a lot of, hopefully, going to see a lot of, promising youth come into the team, and you're going to get into, these players that are going to be part of the future, that are going to be, built upon one another. You're going to see a roster, hopefully, get built that will contend 3, 4, 5 years down the road, and you'll see the pieces come together, and hopefully, Kyle Davidson can be true to his word that, in the end, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be, I'm hoping, my hope is that the rebuild is not a train wreck, and we don't end up like, a team like the Sabres, where it's every year has to, the rebuild starts now. Next year, the rebuild starts now.
Yeah, we don't want that.
I really hope that that's not the case. We don't really know a lot about Davidson, but I think there can be optimism that, we're not talking about 7, 8, 9 years. We keep talking about 3, 4, 5. Let's hope it's 3, 4, 5. But I think, getting into it now, getting invested in some of these young guys, and I hate to trust the process, but trust the process. I think in the end we can get to a place where, we saw the Blackhawks in 2007, 2008, 2009, and then 2010 is when it,
I think that's what we're going to use.
Came together.
We're going to use now. We're not going to say trust the process. We're going to say hop on the ride.
Hop on the ride.
If the Blackhawks aren't going to trademark it, that's going to be our thing. Hop on the ride. Hop on the ride and CHGO, and then hop on the ride with the Blackhawks. Because we talked a little bit about yesterday, this fan base right now, a lot of the Blackhawk fan base are people that didn't get in until the Stanley Cup years, be it by age or just because, popularity.
Winning hockey draws people in.
We're not going to call those people bandwagon fans, because, listen, if you started watching in 2010 and you're still a fan in 2022, you've got 12 seasons into this. You're not a bandwagon fan.
And
You're
you have experienced
everything, right?
Hardships already.
So I think the fun part about this is that a lot of the fan base that joined Stanley Cup run and beyond, they weren't there for those first couple years before. They weren't there seeing Keith and Seabrook cut their teeth and have their growing pains and then evolve into Hall of Fame defensemen. Now they get that chance to get in at the ground floor, get in from day one, and then pick those guys. Is it Lucas Reichel? It's probably guys that haven't even been drafted yet. But
there's a 14-year-old out there that's going to be leading the Blackhawks to the Stanley Cup.
There's an 8th grader that's going to win the Conn Smythe in 2028.
Yeah.
But this is the time for that part of the fan base. Instead of being bummed out that the Blackhawks are going to be bad. We'll say it. They're going to be bad for a couple of years.
They're going to lose more than they win.
They're going to be bad with a purpose. It's one thing to put together a team you think is going to be competitive and then they're lousy, but it's one thing going, hey, we're going to make this hurt so it feels so freaking good in a couple of years, and it's worth it.
Right.
So for that part of the fan base that didn't really get into the team until that first magical playoff run, now is their chance to buy in from the very beginning. Hop on the ride.
Absolutely.
Hop on the ride now. That's we're stealing that. Sorry, Kyle.
Hey guys, I have want you to check out this chat here by Jake.
This guy again?
Yeah, he asked you a question. Was this we're trying to be positive. So was this the best second period of the Kyle Davidson era?
Best second period of the Kyle Davidson era.
Without a doubt.
Yes.
That is
if I have ever seen some second periods under the Kyle Davidson era, that was the best one.
Yes, it's going to be hard to top. Yes, that was if we had our Pointsbet apps out right now, that would be a lock, I believe. It's a gambling term.
Can we talk about Pointsbet for a second? Because
let's.
I feel like we should talk about Mario. How was your first Pointsbet experience today?
Thanks, Lawrence.
Well, we could talk about mine next. I know my second period didn't go well.
Yeah, it didn't go well. I went with the Blackhawks on the money line, and it fell through. So
well, to let you guys in behind the curtain here at the CHGO headquarters, we all signed up for the Pointsbet app, and we were having some fun with it during the game. Mario, myself, Lawrence, our excellent producer, and Jake, who's another one of our great behind-the-camera guys that makes all the magic happen. We were having some fun, placing some fun little bets. It's a lot of fun when you're hanging out with your buddies, watching a game. Makes it a little more fun. None of us got to retire, We're still here. We still had to do the show. We didn't hit it big, but it was a lot of fun, and I recommend, throw it on.
I don't know about you guys, but I would do this job for free myself. So retire, really?
Oh, don't say that too loud. The boss might be listening.
Exactly. So another thing I wrote down here that I wanted to kind of talk about is, we've seen a ton of Marc-Andre Fleury this year, and Kevin Lankinen came into this season, before Marc-Andre Fleury arrived. He was probably going to be penciled in as a starter. He got the most starts last season and didn't do too bad as getting his first taste of the NHL. He gets the start today. He gets 23 saves on 27 shots faced. He has not had a good season. He's had some injuries. I know he's a likable guy, but his contract's up at the end of the year. The Blackhawks' only goaltender right now that with an NHL contract that is signed to next season is Arvid Soderblom, who's a rookie who's playing in Rockford. He's had a few appearances in the NHL, but we really don't know a lot about him. Is Kevin Lankinen part of the plan, short term or long term, in net for the Blackhawks? Because if you would have asked me this at the beginning of the season, I would have said, yeah, probably. Now I'm not so sure.
Again, that's one of those tough questions Kyle Davidson has to address. Short term, I think you can be fine bringing him back. And listen, you want to get a really good draft pick for 2023. You're never going to admit to tanking, but a goaltending duo of Kevin Lake and Arvid Soderblom might help you with that.
That will probably do it.
And but those are two guys that you need to find out. If they're your 1A, 1B next year, the results might not be great, but you're going to find out. Mm-hmm. We don't know if Kevin Lankinen is a long-term NHL starter. We all thought he was going to be at the end of last season, but this year, he's struggled. He's had injuries. He hasn't had, and it's tough to be a young goalie in a backup situation. He's gone days without playing in game action. That's not easy for any goalie, especially someone who's never done that before.
Right.
At this level, especially. So, we've talked a lot about Marc-Andre Fleury being the big trade chip for the Hawks, and if they come to an agreement to trade him, well, then it's Kevin Lankinen's net. And then we're going to get a good 15 or so starts to help make that decision, and he can earn his spot or he can earn his ticket out of town.
Yeah.
Kevin Lankinen, bringing him back on a 1-year deal wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Right.
Giving him anything beyond that, he's still got to prove a lot to me.
Right, and it's hard to kind of forecast the Blackhawks' position in net because, like I said, the only person on contract beyond this year is Arvid Soderblom, who's a rookie, who's just kind of getting his first taste of hockey in North America. You have Drew Comezzo coming up in the prospect pipeline, but as promising as he looks, he's not coming in next season.
Next season, you have to know he's 3-4 years around before he should be at least really considering that.
Right, absolutely.
So they're going to need some help there,
right,
for sure.
And so I think you also look at the free agency market for goaltenders this year. There's not really anyone likely going to be hitting the market that you're going to say is part of a long-term or is worthy of a long-term investment as well. So as rough as Lankinen has had it this year, I think you're right that still giving him that like one extra year to kind of prove himself if he's going to stick around, I think is the way to go. But it's starting to fade for me.
I agree with you. He's got a lot to prove for sure. And listen, the Blackhawks aren't a team that should be going out spending money on a free agent goalie. What's it going to get them? Nothing.
Right.
So, that's Lankinen's the type of guy you bring in, and then maybe the European scouting staff has done really well over the years bringing goaltenders across the pond. So maybe they can pull out another Kevin Lankinen, another Arvid Soderblom, another Antti Ranta,
right.
Antti Niemi. The list goes on. How many of these guys have we had that came out of nowhere, seemingly from Europe? So goaltending should be the least concern for Kyle Davidson, at least for the 2022-23 season. He needs to be building the prospect pool for when they're ready to compete. Drew Comezzo, we mentioned him. He's the guy that, he's a top prospect. Long way to go. We all know goalies take much longer to develop, so we shouldn't even be thinking,
I mean, we've seen in recent years a couple top-end goalies come in and make impacts right away. Once they got more of a real shot in the NHL. But yeah, it's you're not seeing very many goalies come in as 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds coming in and being starters. With the Flyers, Carter Hart came in and had all this momentum, and now he's somebody that they might be trying to move.
Right.
And you look at a player like Jake Ottinger, Spencer Knight, like these young goalies. They take some time, even when they look like they're coming right out of the gate, like coming hot right out of the gate.
Like Jack Campbell.
Yeah,
Campbell was a first round pick. What, 2014, 2015?
Yeah, a while.
And he was an afterthought. Now he's the main guy in Toronto. He's come back to earth a little bit because, well, who didn't expect that? But this isn't a Leaf show. So, no, goalies take a long time. They're a different breed, and they're so hard to predict, because you can have a guy, like you just mentioned, Carter Hart, setting the world on fire, and now it hasn't been great. Remember the Andrew Hammond phenomenon a few years ago, hamburgers getting thrown on the ice, and he's been an AHL goalie for the last 5 or 6 seasons. So, it's the goaltending position is such a fickle position, and it changes from not only season to season, but game to game. That's like the last thing they need to be worried about in constructing next season's roster.
Yeah, short-term.
They definitely need to bring in guys and have guys for beyond next season. But next season, you go Soderblom, Lankinen as your tandem. I'm 100% fine with that. I'm okay with that. Let's see what these guys can do, because eventually we're going to need to know if they're going to be hopping on the ride or not.
Right. Exactly.
Threw it in there. Got it.
And you mentioned Jack Campbell and the Leafs. I know this isn't a Leafs podcast, but
Everything's about the Leafs.
They are.
Don't you pay attention on Twitter?
Of course, yeah. They are a team, obviously, that is looking to contend, looking to get out of the first round. And now, Jack Campbell looked like, a guy who, if the NHL was going to be going to the Olympics, he might have been on Team USA.
Right.
And now it looks like, he's having some struggles, and they're a team that needs a solid goaltender. I mean, could Kyle Davidson call Kyle Dubas and make a deal? Get the Kyle D's talking to each other, because
two young Kyles make it work.
Because talk about a team that is probably willing to go for a run for a guy like Marc-Andre Fleury.
Absolutely. And when you think about the other teams that have been associated in those rumors, what are you going to get from the Penguins? What are you going to get from the Oilers? Not a whole lot. The Avalanche.
Right.
The Avalanche keep popping up in Blackhawk rumors. We can
we'll talk about that in a second.
Spoiler alert, or segue, however you want, whichever one you want to use. But the Leafs are a team that are a goaltender away from being a legit Stanley Cup threat.
They also need some help on defense.
Right.
Can you throw them a Fleury-DeHaan?
Sure.
Combo?
I'll even throw in a discounted Jake McCabe.
Discounted?
Let's make a deal.
Yeah, I mean,
they've got prospects. They've got draft capital. Hey, Nick Robertson for Marc-Andre Fleury and Calvin DeHaan. Who says no?
Maybe,
I don't.
Well, maybe the Leafs do at that price, but
you want to win a cup? You haven't won in 1967.
That's true. How
desperate? Those are the offers you got to make. How desperate? How bad do they want it?
Especially that team, that market. I mean, talk about like a comparison to like the Chicago Cubs. Trying to just get the one. Stop saying 108 years. Stop saying 1967. Like that's a team that you could look at as a trade partner for the Blackhawks and say, like you said, like you can really recoup some top end prospects and some quality picks. For a first round pick for Leafs, if they end up going on a run, it's going to be late first round. Okay, sure.
Late first round's better than no first round.
But it's still the Leafs. Right. They could do everything that they wanted, and they could still lose in the first round to Boston
still get
somehow.
That 18th pick because they were out. In
round
one. Yeah. So it's that's a very interesting scenario, and you're 100% right that the Leafs are an intrigue. Even if it's not from Marc-Andre Fleury, we've got defensemen. Mm-hmm. They need defensemen,
and they're probably not wanting to blow up the farm for a guy like Ben Sherratt or, Jacob Chikrin. So if you want to solidify somebody with a Calvin DeHaan for cheap, maybe throw him in with a Marc-Andre Fleury. Who knows? Like, I think that's a team that's very interesting for the Blackhawks to be looking at. Another one we want to talk about it quickly here that's popped up was the Colorado Avalanche. News coming out reports that they made a phone call to the Blackhawks about the availability of Patrick Kane. I mean, they have cap issues. They don't have draft capital to give up. It would definitely have to involve the Blackhawks retaining, which to me makes it sound like they would have to also give up some pretty prime prospects to land Patrick Kane in Colorado. I don't know. I don't put a lot of weight in it because everyone around the league knows the Blackhawks. They've expressed we are in a rebuild. People know. Okay, do Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane want to be around? Like, we're talking about it. Everyone else is talking about it. So for a team to not be calling the Blackhawks and saying, hey, what's up with Patrick Kane? Like, they're not doing your due diligence.
Right. I mean, every team in the league can call, but until Patrick Kane says, I want to go and this is where I want to go, phone calls are phone calls at this point. I'm sure they called. If I'm the Avalanche, if I'm Joe Sakic, I'm calling for Marc-Andre Fleury, not Patrick Kane. That team doesn't need another dynamic forward right now.
Right.
Only one puck on the ice at a time. So that's not the guy I'm calling for. But I mean, Joe Sakic's one of the best GMs in the game. He's one of the, he's fleeced the Blackhawks more than once.
Right.
In his career.
Exactly.
So again, is this one of those veteran guys saying, okay, let's see what this new kid's about. Let's see if we can get him going here. Who knows? But I'm sure he's taking phone calls. But again, until Patrick Kane goes to Davidson and says, okay, I'm willing to go somewhere else now, I don't expect Patrick Kane getting traded at the deadline. He's not the type of player with another year in his contract and all the salary and all that other stuff. That's not a deadline type deal. If he's going to move, it's probably going to happen in the off season. You know, it certainly sounds like he wants to stay here. He's in the middle of a season, so I can't see him changing his mind in the next 2 weeks. Not saying it's impossible, but I could definitely see after the season, seeing what happens at the trade deadline, sitting and taking some time to think about it, then, you know, maybe that's a trade that happens at the draft. That's where I can see that trade happen before the deadline. So I know I can see January.
I know,
know she's a huge Patrick Kane fan.
A Patrick Kane trade is not a popular trade.
No,
but
it's not. But it's I don't want to say it's a necessary one, but it kind of is.
It is.
You want to do it right.
Right. From a hockey business standpoint.
For big picture standpoint, it is.
It is hard to rebuild when you have not one but two $10 million players on your on your cap.
Especially when one of them can get you a lot in return. Patrick Kane can still get you a lot in return.
And the one thing too, I think with Kane wanting to stay in Chicago, I think if the communication between Kyle Davidson and Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews to an extent as well, I think if the communication is more clear than it was with Stan Bowman, you know, we've seen that. You know, communication for Kyle Davidson is going to be key. He already said it in his introductory press conference that there's going to be no surprises for guys like Patrick Kane or Jonathan Toews when it comes to their futures or the future direction of the team. And we saw maybe a little bit of a veiled shot from Jonathan Toews saying that, you know, he believes in Kyle Davidson, you know, a veiled shot at Sam Bowman by saying he believes in Kyle Davidson, someone who's going to stick to a plan and not make moves based off of ego. So it could be that, you know, Kane and Toews could be convinced to stick around because Kyle Davidson lays things out to them, lays a plan out to them and says, hey, like, this is what we're going to do. Do you want to be involved in this? And if they're on board, those no movement clauses, if they don't want to waive them, you can't do nothing about it. So
Davidson can get the greatest offer in the world for both of those guys until they say yes, it's not happening.
Yeah.
So those are discussions that that I think if they haven't had already, they're going to need to have at the end of the season and say, listen, this is where it's going to be. This is where we're heading. If you want to be a part of this and be veteran leaders, great. If you want to go somewhere and get one more cup, we'll do what we can to get you where you want to go. But, you know, you got to steer them in the direction you're hoping they pick at some point.
And if one of you is going to stick around, one of you is going to have to take a pay cut.
Absolutely.
And, and I think we know which one's going to have to take the pay cut.
Yeah, well, they're both. I mean, if they're going to play beyond next season here, they're both not going to get what they were making. One of them's getting a severe pay cut.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll do it for this edition of the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. Remember, brought to you by Pointsbet. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up with Pointsbet. That's been Greg Boysen. I'm Mario Tirabassi. Hop on the ride, and we will see you next time.